All right, boys and girls, today we're doing Lesson 5 in our biography unit. Let's review. We've been working on developing an idea or a theory, just like we do in fiction books, about the subject of the biographies we are reading. We looked at the decisions the subject made to help us understand what the person was or is like. Today, we're going to look at another way we can better understand what the subject is like by paying attention to the relationships he or she has with the people in his or her life. Both good and the bad relationships in his or her life can have an impact. Today, in the story Ruby Bridges, we have already identified that the subject is Ruby Bridges, but there's some other people in the book that she has relationships with. One of those people is her mother. At the beginning of the book, it tells us that Ruby's mother stayed at home during the day to take care of them, which meant that Ruby got to spend a lot of time with her mother when she was little. Ruby's mother was excited about the opportunity that Ruby was being given to attend school and wanted her daughter to keep her head high and be proud of what she was doing. It also tells us in several different places that Ruby's mother prayed for her daughter to be given strength and courage to overcome difficult things. Remember when we read that one day on the way to school, Ruby stopped in the middle of the angry crowd and she prayed for those people? Even though they were angry and probably yelling really mean things at her, she was able to still care about them. Her mom had taught her to be kind, but also to be confident in herself. Because of Ruby's strong relationship with her mother, she was able to walk past those people every day and still make it to school with a smile on her face. Let's try this by looking at another example of a relationship Ruby had with someone that had influence in her life. Follow along as I read. The white people in the neighborhood would not send their children to school. When Ruby got inside the building, she was all alone, except for her teacher, Mrs. Henry. There were no other children to keep Ruby company, to play with and learn with, to eat lunch with. But every day, Ruby went into the classroom with a big smile on her face, ready to get down to the business of learning. She was polite and she worked well at her desk, Miss Henry said. She enjoyed her time there. She didn't seem nervous or anxious or irritable or scared. She seemed as normal and relaxed as any child I've ever taught. So Ruby began learning how to read and write in an empty classroom, an empty building. Sometimes I'd look at her and wonder how she did it, said Miss Henry. How she went by those mobs and sat there all by herself, yet seemed so relaxed and comfortable. Miss Henry would question Ruby in order to find out if the girl was really nervous and afraid, even though she seemed so calm and confident. But Ruby kept saying she was doing fine. The teacher decided to wait and see if Ruby would keep on being so relaxed and hopeful, or if she'd gradually begin to wear down, or even decide that she no longer wanted to go to school. Then one morning, something happened. Ruby stood by a window in the classroom, as she usually did, watching Ruby walk toward the school. Suddenly, Ruby stopped, right in front of the mob of howling and screaming people. She stood there facing all those men and women. She seemed to be talking to them. Miss Henry saw Ruby's lips moving and wondered what Ruby could be saying. The crowd seemed ready to kill her. The marshals were frightened. They tried to persuade Ruby to move along. They tried to hurry her into the school, but Ruby wouldn't budge. Then Ruby stopped talking and walked into the school. When she went into the classroom, Miss Henry asked her what happened. Miss Henry told Ruby that she'd been watching and that she was surprised when Ruby stopped and talked with the people in the mob. Ruby became irritated. I didn't stop and talk with them, she said. Ruby, I saw you talking, Miss Henry said. I saw your lips moving. I wasn't talking, said Ruby. I was praying. I was praying for them. Every morning, Ruby had stopped a few blocks away from school to say a prayer for the people who hated her. This morning, she forgot until she was already in the middle of the angry mob. So, Ruby had a relationship with her teacher, Miss Henry. When Ruby came to school, there were no other students. Miss Henry could have decided to stay home, but instead she chose to come to work every day, even though there was only one student. Miss Henry cared about Ruby. She talked to her about the bad things that were going on outside, the crowd outside. She worked with her and taught her the things she needed to know in first grade. I want you to think about it for a minute in your head. How was Ruby influenced by her relationship with Miss Henry? Was it a positive relationship or a negative one? And how was her life different. Now I want you to turn and talk with your partner and share what you were thinking about Ruby's relationship with Miss Henry. Use this sentence frame as you talk. Ruby and Miss Henry's relationship was, Miss Henry impacted Ruby's life by. So today and every day when we read our biographies, we need to pay close attention to the relationships that the subject has with the people around him or her. These people can influence the subject's life and make a difference. Get into your book clubs and begin reading.